Thank you everybody for taking some time today to enjoy our on-demand webinar. My name is Emma Maynard and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations here at JMU. I'm also a proud double Duke of the university, graduating in 2007 and then again receiving my master's in 2016. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Madison Network. The Madison Network is a valuable resource that JMU instills in each of us by simply being connected to the university through our own personal Madison experience. The Madison Network is not something you have to join. It's something you are already a part of as a student, alumni, faculty, staff, parent, family, and friend of JMU. The benefits of the Madison Network come alive through connection, conversation, and engagement with one another and the university through things like participation in today's webinar. Make Your Website Work for You. This is part 1 featuring William Roy, who is also a double Duke of JMU. William provides prospective clients online solutions to succeed in the modern marketplace. He loves to find creative ways to combine technology and marketing for businesses ranging from the mom and pop stores to large corporations. He loves living in Harrisonburg, where he can be close to JMU and keep in touch with his department and today's students. He has 2 future Dukes at home and is married to a JMU graduate as well. William is currently the Director of Digital Sales and co-founder of Emerge, a digital marketing firm offering award-winning services in web development, responsive design, and search engine marketing and optimization. It's also a plus that it's located right here in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's now my pleasure to turn things over to William for our presentation.
Thank you, Emma, and it's great to be here. I do love speaking hellos out to all the Madison fellows and just every Duke that gets to listen to this. And today's focus is going to be on making your website work for you. So whether you're already established with your corporate side or you're trying to figure out how to maybe get a hobby going, these are all the core principles that you need to be looking at. And even good for someone who's already out there to maybe use this as a refresher course or a checklist, just to make sure that you're doing what you need to get presenting yourself well. We all have gifts and talents, and today's world, the web is where first impressions really are. So how do you make your website work for you and present you well 24/7? Briefly, I just stuck a quick picture in on the left. The third tuxedo over, that's me, and that's when I had a lot more hair on the top of my head. But that was 2003, and I really enjoyed that 1-credit class, you know, that you just have to do to finish your diploma. On the right, I just enjoy, that's me now, just really enjoying my work, and that smile is on my face because I get to be in Harrisonburg, and I get to work with the school sometimes on projects, and I have a lot of close friends who are professors now that are, you know, in their 30s having kids, and we're really just engaged in the community. So I just wanted to quickly kind of put a little face to the presentation. Now I want to talk to you, though. This is a quick slide to kind of cover what we're going to talk about at overview. These are each of the ones I'm going to touch into one at a time for 2 slides or so, very quickly, but to help give you a framework to think about how you can look at your own web presence or how you can think about what you need to do. And I will add that a great website is essential. That would be the first thing I would say at the top of this. It's really important to have proper social media and everything around your web presence, but the website is where you control 100% of the way people interact with you. You don't get that anywhere else. Every time Facebook changes or Instagram changes or something else in their social presence, you still have a chance to control your space here with the website. And so we want to make sure that it's these following things. We want to make sure that it's goal-oriented. That means basically how will you grow your business? What are you going to do? What is the purpose of this? Is this a hobby? Is this a business? Is it intuitive? Can people actually use the tool anywhere they are? And then also, is it organized well? And we'll talk a little bit about how to think about organization. Finally, is it useful? Is it even information that people would want about whatever it is that you might have to offer someone or to be able to share with someone? And functional. Does it do useful things? Is it a cool tool or something that people can use? How is it going to work with search engines? Do you need to be found? If you don't need to be found, that's a different story. But most people do want to have their content found because they've published it for a reason. So let's talk a little bit more about goals. What do you want a website to do for you, and why do you want it? Well, these are a couple of key ideas just to give you some starters. You might be trying to build your brand about something you can do or services or products that you offer, or a hobby that you enjoy and you want to bring others into, or a nonprofit that you want to support. Look at generating leads, because that's really, people are looking for some kind of service or product. Then how do you get those people to make it, to come on board? The making sales, some of us need that. I mean, that's most of the people I talk to, they want to be able to find some way, whether that's an online sale or some way of bringing traffic into their businesses, their brick and mortars. Next, you might want to re-engage customers you already have, so that's a great tool for people to use. And then you can also use this from a career building and recruiting side, because the way that your website looks speaks volumes to the kind of caliber of people you might get for a recruiting opportunity. And lastly, if you offer something that requires some kind of a support, it's a great place that you can control again to give your information and organize it and present it in a way that's hopefully intuitive, as we'll talk about briefly in a little bit. Another thing to think about, even if you have a website or not, is just to rethink about who your target audience is today. Do you understand your customers well? You might think you do, but it might be worth reevaluating who they are, seeing the world like them, talking to them a little bit more, and rethinking, does my content, does the information and the way that I'm presenting myself really meet up with what their expectations are and be a good fit? Also, when you make a website, you need to think about how you're going to measure that success. Now, there are different ways that you can do that, and there's really a spectrum of these things, but at a very simple level, there's these 4 ways you can do it. You can track phone calls. That's just by taking a phone call and actually writing it down, but there are some additional things that Google gives you, and that's called Google My Business. When people click on the phone button, it actually tracks that a call was made to you. When people click on that directions button, it actually keeps track that people were trying to find your location. And when they click the website button, it works that way. If you haven't got a Google My Business page, this is the only thing that I say is as essential as a website today because of the way Google controls the market and search. We'll get into that a little bit more in a future discussion. But tracking online sales is a very straightforward one, but for people that don't have e-commerce needs, it might be a little more challenging. Think about having how people get from A to B in your services and your information. Have they followed the path that you would have presented if you were sitting with them? And that's a way that you can see, did they go to page 1, then they go to the page 2. That's another way to look at it. But finally, the importance of measuring engagement is really just in knowing that you have traffic visiting. What pages are they looking at? And then maybe that gives you some additional insights about success for you. Thinking about your existing or future website, the question you want to ask yourself here is, what do you want this site to accomplish? And you need to be really specific and realistic about these things. And you need to think about what are ways that you can really track over time these different measurements. So a great website is also intuitive. Now, intuitive gets into some design discussion. So this is a very quick slide just to kind of highlight on a make-believe company, Sasha's Bakery, where these different pieces are and some terminology to help you think through it if you're completely new to this. Graphics, pretty straightforward. Layout, that's the whole page. Functionality, if you look at the mobile device, you can see that there's a phone, a mail, and an info. Those are different ways to get information and that you can get that information out, and that you need to know, when you push that phone button, is it going to use your phone app to call, or is it at least going to pop that up? Are the fonts and the information presented? That's fonts and content. So colors also speak to your brand. This is all what website design is about. Getting these pieces right is the design side of it. Development's a different one, and we'll talk about that, and that's functionality in a minute. But a great website design typically has an attractive and consistent set of graphics and style. It has simple navigation. You see on this one here, the bar has home, bakery menu, about, image gallery, contact, and blog. And it's really not more than that. It's a simple 5 to 7 navigation. Now, you might have deeper information in a bigger corporation or bigger company or a more complex thing. That's okay. Make those subpages. Those are drop downs, perhaps, or information that someone can click to once they land on that page. But think simple navigation, because you want to give someone an opportunity to not be overwhelmed and to be guided by you, by your decisions about how you organize the site. Now, a site search is very popular still, absolutely. Most solutions, especially if you have a WordPress website, they're just going to automatically have a site search built into them. But you also want to make sure that the text that you have is readable, and so double check to make sure that you're using colors that are going to function together, that might provide high contrast. And where possible and where importantly you want to try to think about where are colors that are going to be too hard for someone with any kind of challenge to their vision, might be needing something different. And finally, just useful tools. So a calendar of when you're open if you're a community organization. Those are things that are useful tools. And don't forget mobile. This is actually where we talk about mobile access is now the most important. In fact, we use the terms mobile first. Think of what your page is going to look like. Focus on the navigation and the homepage experience there more than anywhere else because, frankly, people are going to find you there first. And make it easy to complete whatever tasks, meaning fill out a contact form, make it easy to fill out the form, make it easy for them to click the phone button to call you. And make it easy also, like those phone buttons. Sometimes if you just pick a random design or you try and get this put in by yourself, those designs have really bad what we call padding around those graphics, and it makes it really hard to tap. And you're going to tap the phone number, but suddenly the email opens because you were just too close with your finger. We've all had that, and it's very frustrating. So think about those little details, and if you're working with someone, those usually are the things that they are a professional would automatically include in their work. But it's a great way to double check your own site. If it has those problems, you need to resolve them, and then you can work on other things. A great website is also, as we talked about, organized well. So the magic word in our industry is information architecture. Don't feel overly complex about that. Don't worry about it too much. It's just a way to organize information on your site and to achieve those business goals. So where you put information is essentially the information architecture, just like we talked about, the navigation. And this business example sells sports uniforms. So if you think about the uniform store homepage, having products, if you drew the lines, would probably go down into categories of basketball, football, and baseball. And that might be different outfits and uniforms that they offer, and they'd each have their own dedicated page. But that would be more under products, not so much under about and contact, just to give you a little concept. Now, just thinking about creating a web page targeted for photographers. If you just looked at these two, it's which one would appeal to the casual users. The idea is you can see that there's some differences about finding the cameras by feature or finding them by price. It depends, right? You want to maybe look at things the way you want to. So this is another one of those tools examples where it's built in a way that lets people experience the site and organizes the information in a way, the way they want to read it, not just the way you want to read it. So give them options if that's appropriate, especially if you have product data to sort through. And just a couple final tips on organizing your site. Using very short descriptive names and labels, that's actually going to be more helpful because people read the labels faster, and then they can dive in deeper into deep content on a page about it. But also keep your visitors in mind and where and how would they look for the info on the site. So think about that in your navigation. And again, keep the most important info in the main navigation. So something you could do on your own, just to kind of recap where we are so far, who is your target audience? What are their needs? And how can you organize your site to help them? This is just kind of a way to help group what we've already talked about up till now, as it kind of really comes to a head with the architecture of the site. So a great website is also useful. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's useful because of the content that might be on it, and content is what makes up your site. So that's the text, the images, and the videos. And you can use this content to help achieve your business goals, really by how you convey yourself, your tone, your style, how you get across your personality, your character, and at the same time you want that content to be useful for your audience so that it could be answering questions that people might look for. One of the things that's most interesting in the changes that have happened in the last few years is that we've gone away from just trying to be all keyword rich, where we talk about just these specific words are on the site, and it's more now the way you speak. Think of your natural language. How would you ask a question? Google was able to make an assessment and read your content without the keywords in there and still make an association when someone uses a keyword to search for you. It's basically smarter now that your content needs to really answer the question well, and Google can actually tell how well you answer that question compared to others without even really worrying about just keywords on a page. So do your best to really provide relevant content. And again, organize your content logically. If you have regular content, which typically is in the form of a blog, you're going to want to make sure that you're using a tool, a platform that allows you to provide a steady stream, and maybe it shows that information on other pages of the site. At least that you categorize it so that you're taking advantage of categories so people can filter that information more quickly and to read through it. And it also helps with making the content recognizable to search engines. When you create more and more content through a blog or through any part of your site, You just need to make sure that you think about how these pieces all fit in. And it's the substance of your site, as the slide says. Now, a couple quick best practices on text. You do want to use important keywords still. I'm not saying that's not happening, but you want to think about the whole context of how you use that in content. You want to lead with important info. The first part of the page is still read more importantly than the second in many of these situations. Bulleted lists do help improve readability on web. People scan, so having shorter paragraphs and more headings, smaller headings, can be also very helpful because people read the headings and then they jump into the content they want. And finally, publish consistently, like I was talking about with the blog. That's a nice way to continue to define a place where people can go to always look for new information from you. And on images, a couple of tips. You really need to make this first impression with imagery right. So high quality is a good make part of this. Maybe taking your photos on your own time, but maybe find a friend or find a professional photographer, depending on the level of the business, and make sure you've got a quality picture set. Also look for ways to make sure that they may involve you, or that they at least are consistent in their style. And very important, making sure you have permission. Most people on this call might know, but just in case, you can use royalty-free photography that you can find, and you can use some of Google's search tools to do that. But you need to make sure you've got the right kind of permission. And again, this is a little bit more of a geek out, but having the right size and format for your images. If you have a small picture you want to put next to your text, make sure that you've actually resized that picture down before you upload it, because if it's a gigantic picture that you could turn into a wall mural in your office, you're going to slow down the page's load, you're going to hurt the experience, and some other things we'll talk about. And there's something called an alt text. For every really important page image, you can write a description, and that alternative text is both read by Google, and it's helpful to sort out what really the content of the page is. And finally, on video, the 3 C's of video, just a quick cover: conversations, connections, and conversions. So conversations is you want to encourage viewers to comment and give you feedback. That might be over on your YouTube channel if you're doing regular video. Connections turn viewers into subscribers. Again, that's a nice way to turn that in, is to let them subscribe to your YouTube channel or your Facebook channel. And then conversions, which is really now you try to figure out how can you focus in, now that you've got engagement, how can you focus on turning that into someone that's either helping you through purchasing your products or services, or supporting and funding something that you're trying to do some fundraising for to get the word out about. And if you do video, just think about what questions would you ask your audience? What information could you talk about? And you can keep these videos very short if you decide to do them, but it is a very easy way to do today. You don't have to have the most extreme professional equipment if you're trying to just create a personal connection. Now, if you're a larger business and you're trying to get across more formal presentation for larger B2B work, I definitely advise you to rethink just using your own camera and phone to do it. But this works really well for entrepreneurs, startups, and many others. And then make sure you include a call to action in your video to do something else. Maybe they need to learn more, and so you can tell them to go to a web page on your site. That's just an example. So a great website is also functional. And what really do I mean? Well, basically having a site search, having these online forms, an online store, these are all pieces of functionality that occur on your site. This is what makes it more than a brochure. And so, you know, there's some different ways about how can your website help. If you had these different challenges, which I've put up here, you can think through some of these different ones. You know, I'll just do one. But if you own a landscape company that delivers mulch, customers don't know how much to order. Well, how could your website help there? You can provide a guide, a matrix, maybe some more layman term versions of explanation that says if you have a yard that takes you 30 minutes to mow or 10 minutes to mow, you were probably going to need this much. So it's just different ways that you can create connections with your audience and show that you're an expert, but also show that you can communicate with them effectively. These other challenges I'll leave for you to look at and think about in a replay. And a great website is also search friendly. So this is important to most everybody still. I've rarely found anybody that doesn't care about search. And understanding how Google works and how Google changes over time is really integral to you understanding what you're doing and having a context for why. And again, there are these software tools from Google called web crawlers, or they're also known as spiders. and they go through the different websites and servers across the world. And there's a lot of websites around the world, but it's Google, and they've got plenty of bandwidth to do it. And when you search, Google's algorithm finds the info you're looking for. Now, that algorithm is using these 200+ signals to decide which pages and content are most relevant. And at the same time, they're also going to display that information potentially coming back to the user in 80 to 100 different ways on the search page. You may not have totally picked up on this consciously, but if you do a search for something right now, let's just say a product you're looking for, you might notice that now you're going to see a carousel across the top. That's what we call that, where there's a block of images. You might notice that if you searched for a celebrity, that on the right-hand side of the screen, on a desktop anyway, you're going to see pictures of them. You're going to see when they were born, pulled information from IMDb database, different things. So what's happening is the way your content is presented on your website is being redisplayed in different ways, as well as being sorted on a number of different signals to be presentable and at the right time for relevance. And so that's where it really comes in. Now, if you're a local business, if you're a brick and mortar, depending on the distance of the person, that's one of the signals that would read. If you're on a mobile device, it can tell you're on a mobile device. It can tell you're 1.3 miles away. And if you say restaurants near me, it's going to pick the ones that are near you. So that's the carousel that I was talking about when you're shopping. You can see that. But then you can also see there are plenty of ads, and I won't get into all the discussions about ads today, but just the fact that if you're a Google business listing, that's what's on the right of this screen, then you are going to have these opportunities to fill up more of the search results page with your business than ever before. You don't just have to have one listing. You could be the best listing, you could have advertising running, and you could be showcasing your business and hours and reviews, which are collected by Google all on the web, and you can claim that Google business listing and update your own pictures, put your own descriptions in, make sure you're in control of when the hours are so people can really connect with you at the right time. Now, these are just a couple of quick things about helping Google understand your site. So it's really important that you have a fast loading website. That's probably one of the most important pieces now in terms of ranking and showing your site. Useful content is right there with it though. Next down the list a little bit is linking between different texts of your site, between the pages, and also out to other resources or being linked back into. The page titles and descriptions, those are what you still see when you're looking at a page like this, where you see Shasta's Bakery - order online there in the middle, that organic search result that's pointed there. That place your order, online order of our freshly handmade macaroons, that little description is the description I'm talking about. Every page can have a unique title and a description, and the titles are really important because those keywords that are in there directly affect how you're ranking. We talked about information architecture and making sure that it works on all devices and browsers that you can, at least modern ones. Don't feel like you need to work on an old version of Internet Explorer or something. So quick next steps, just think through what's next. Make a list of those goals that you really want for your site. Select an intuitive design. You can work with a partner, a professional. You can work with a freelancer, but make sure that they have good references and that sort of thing. And then also make sure you have a good architecture. Make sure the person you're working with maybe could help you think through that. Finally, reevaluate your existing content or create some new content. And think about what would be functionally helpful to them. What would be a nice thing? Like an FAQ page could be very helpful. That's a functionality, if you want it to be, where the box is open as you click each question. You've all seen that. And making sure your site's search engine friendly. So that kind of brings us to, if you want to learn more, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, and I'd be happy to talk to you about those things in an independent conversation. There I am at the end of this conversation, and Emma, I'm ready to pass it back to you.
Well, thank you so much, William. It's incredible how much information can be put together in just 20 minutes. And I think about those that are business owners or work in the industry of, streamlining websites and digital marketing and design. And with such a digital world that we're in and all the competition that there is out there to keep clients' attention, how the tips that you just shared are so pivotal to the branding of a business and really keeping clients coming back. I guess first, being able to go to your site and get the information they need right away, but make them also bought in to, coming back to your services. So thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask just a few questions to get to know you a little bit more and your background for our listeners. So, this piece here is a great way for our listeners to focus on their professional development. So kind of turning the tables to you, what sort of professional development do you do to stay current in your industry?
Well, there are two things that I think that's a good question. First of all, I, I would start by saying that it's impossible to keep up on everything in this industry. So if you're not even in the industry, it's going to be a challenge at times. There's new information, and I know some companies that have 15-minute discussions in the morning every day about what might have changed, and because they're that granularly interested in some particular part of web presence or branding online or digital marketing or something. But for me, one of the best ways to keep up, and I think this is very reasonable and tangible for a lot of folks out there who just want to know kind of what are the big things, is to refer to a couple of big websites. And one particular is called SEO Moz, M-O-Z. And that website just has some great blog content. You could check in anytime and just read blogs, or you can sign up for their weekly newsletter. And they have something called Whiteboard Fridays, where they have one of the, what I think is people are the most talented in the industry can hop on, and he actually has a whiteboard, and he does a video, and he walks through all of this. His name's Rand Fishkin, and he does a great job at conveying complex things in a very easy way to understand. Now, not everything that he says is always going to relate to every type of business, but he has a great resource and a searchable database, and all of those things are part of that SEO Moz. So I love those kinds of resources. I think they're easy enough to look up and stay up with. There's a lot of detail changes that happen in each of the different pieces of web design. If you, for example, think about just graphic design, that talks about a lot of code-related things. That how can you make your site run faster? How can you make your site present information in a gallery in a new and exciting way that no one's ever seen before? Maybe it's an emerging idea, and how can you take advantage of that to get yourself going? But there's the articles are the easiest, and that's a great resource that you guys can look up.
Thank you, William. So in this presentation, we obviously talked a lot from the business owner perspective. But if you're a client and you're out there, again, kind of seeing all these competing companies, and you're trying to make a decision maybe on who the best business may be to go with, what are some things to look at as far as their branding that would be, some really standout good signs, and on the flip side of that, maybe some potential red flags?
Yeah, I think if you look at a particular website and they don't have a portfolio or a well-defined portfolio, that might be a red flag. Maybe they're just starting out and they made their own cool website. So that you might want to make sure that you've looked into seeing, if you are going to speak to them, check and see if they have references and call. I know it's an old school idea, but it's really still completely relevant to this day. Even this past week, I've had that same request of me, where I had to send some people's names and emails that they could reach out to vet them. So that's an important process. I'd say also that Google business listing, that ought to be filled out for that company, and it ought to have some reviews. And if they're not at least 4.0 and above for their reviews, and they have at least maybe 5, maybe even 10 reviews, you might want to be careful about what's going on there. They could be a great company, they just haven't had time to focus on it. But that's kind of what you're hiring them for, so you might want to make sure you have a company that can do it for themselves. And if you just need to get off the ground, you might be able to try and do some of this yourself with some very simplistic things. If it's not a B2B or corporate type business, if this is your new business and you want to, I think you should invest in your time in thinking about your web presence and meeting people. And if you want to work with someone locally, great. There are a lot of great local people around everyone. But there are some challenges, like you said, the red flags. And in that biggest area, I would say look at their Google business listings, that get some reviews. And people tend to know each other in the communities. So that's a good way to look.
Absolutely. Thank you, William. And finally, I just want to see, what your ways are for reconnecting or staying connected to JMU and your Madison network.
Well, besides having some of the greatest friendships that I established in my life at JMU, and those people love to come back to JMU, so I get to kind of cheat and take advantage of the fact that I'm already here.
Absolutely.
We can just go walk around the campus, and I get to tell them all the cool things about, whoa, look at that building, that wasn't there before, and oh, they renovated this. So living in Harrisonburg certainly gives me a special opportunity to feel a connection and to drive by the campus every day. But I also have the opportunity to connect with classes. We've had several, since I founded the company in 2005, we've had 30 plus interns who have been mostly JMU students, and so engaging the students in the classes. And just a few weeks ago, we had a college of business course that's doing digital marketing and studying Google, came through and did a tour of our office and met some of our team. So it's kind of nice that we're that close, but I also have great friendships with some of the professors, and some of the new professors who have come on are kind of in their age of the 30s to 40 age, and I've met some of them, especially in the computer science program, which is one of the programs I studied, that and writing rhetoric and tech comm, as it's called now. And so just building great friendships with them and watching our kids play on the playgrounds and the parks around here or on campus is just great.
That's wonderful, and that's exactly what we hope to hear here in the alumni office. So we definitely encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and for our listeners to keep engaging in the ways that they can, you know, either virtually like this or coming back to campus or getting involved with their local chapters. But William, I want to thank you again for your time in presenting this on-demand webinar. Again, make your website work for you. This is part 1. We're excited we'll be doing a part 2 with William, so stay tuned for that. But you can watch this webinar again or some of our others that we have recorded on demand at jmu.edu/alumni, and then just go under our Madison Network section and you'll be able to find those resources there. But I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and as always, we wish you a wonderful day, and go Dukes.